When most railroad buffs think of trains, they think of passenger trains. But many of those most devoted to trains have found their life work with the railroads. Whether they maintain the tracks or work on the trains themselves, the big business for them is freight, moving everything from coal to lettuce. And although much of the public thinks railroads are a dying industry, in fact, they are thriving. Deregulation has permitted them to abandon money-losing lines, and new techniques, like piggyback hauling of truck trailers and containers, attract new customers. The mass market shipping of fresh produce by rail enables farmers in California to sell lettuce to buyers 3,000 miles away. Lettuce harvesting has become an assembly line operation. Cutter, packer, sprayer, box closer.
Today's lettuce that we've got is probably the best we've had in about a week and a half. It's 54 to 55 pounds, absolutely clean.
Derek Dirdevanis is sales manager of the Admiral Packing Company in Salinas. He sells lettuce by the carload to buyers all over the country.
Just call us back with that order, will you? You know, the one you got in your back pocket.
A refrigerator car holds 30,000 heads of lettuce. This one is bound east for New York City. The morning after the lettuce is picked, the Admiral lettuce car has been joined to a 50-car train called the Salad Bowl Express. 5 Southern Pacific engines are needed to pull the train over a 7,000-foot high pass in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The route climbs toward Donner Pass. On average, 35 feet of snow fall here each winter, and avalanches have obstructed travelers as long as the pass has been used. In November 1846, blizzards trapped the emigrant Donner Party here. 35 died of starvation and exposure. Some survivors resorted to cannibalism. In the spring of 1982, 10 feet of snow fell in 12 days in the High Sierras. Southern Pacific stopped all trains across Donner Pass. Diverting traffic cost $100,000 a day. Snow fighters tried to keep the lines open with spreaders, snowplows that pushed the huge drifts to the side. But when the snow drifts too deep, spreaders stall, and the pushing wings collapse. The nerve center of the railroad's fight is a community of houses and offices connected by tunnels, so buried in snow that it is called Mole Town. Here, 100 men and women work day and night.
SP Norton operator. Railroad coming out at 9 o'clock. Get it out of town for us, will you?
Up at Norton.
Yeah. Make sure that it gets down there and give them a little nudge and get them going, will you?
Everything's in the clear, the number 2?
Everything's in the clear.
How about rotary? Rotary's in the clear, the number 2?
Okay, bring it.
Management calls for its ultimate snow fighting machine, rotary plows that can dig through almost any accumulation of snow.
Okay, Sandy, that light engine's being held right now. The rotary is going on down to the other end of the site.
Throwing 5 tons of snow a minute, 150 feet from the line. The rotary can literally dig a trench deeper than itself. As one rotary chews toward the top of the pass from the west, another struggles up from the east. The first train comes through. Dedicated men with pride in their work have opened the line in only 5 days, and trains like the Salad Bowl Express can once again take the direct route to New York. Beyond the Sierras, the Salad Bowl Express drops into the desert, and a new crew takes over. On the long, straight runs, there's time for shared stories, and for trainmen to enjoy the camaraderie, which is part of the attraction they feel for their work.
I don't think it's dawned on me yet that I've had a kid. Still in shock from it. Went in Sunday night, had it Monday morning. Last couple of days been pretty busy for me. I was lucky. Generally, the railroad doesn't allow you to be in town. They keep you away from home quite often. So I was pretty lucky to be home when it happened.
In 1950, I was on a high-speed perishable train, and a passenger train came out of a side track in front of us. We hit him head-on about 52 miles an hour. The engineer on the other train was killed. I'm very lucky to be here. Ain't that scared me?
By evening, the train is in eastern Nevada. The next morning, now with a Union Pacific engine and crew, the Salad Bowl Express climbs toward the Continental Divide. Around a curve, Castle Rock, a well-known American landmark, comes into view. The famous photographer A.J. Russell captured this same scene when the Transcontinental Railroad was nearing completion. In 1867, it took 3 months to cross by wagon from the railheads on the Missouri River to the Pacific coast. The new rail line cut that time to less than a week. Irish immigrants living in railroad car dormitories built west. Chinese coolies built east. It was the most dramatic engineering accomplishment of the century. Gorges were spanned, mountains cut through or tunneled under. An army of workers fought summer heat and winter snow at a cost of uncounted lives. There were no movie cameras to record the great undertaking, but once movies were invented, filmmakers recreated the drama in classic film. John Ford's The Iron Horse and Cecil B. DeMille's Union Pacific.
Crossing the mountains, the deserts and plains, fighting the heat, the cold and the rain. Summer to autumn, winter to spring. Bring 'em up, lay 'em down, make the hammers ring. Building a new road under the wheel, bind up the earth in iron and steel. Working east, working west, we're building our way on bad food, hard liquor, and $1 a day.
It was a day of national celebration when the two lines met at Promontory, Utah. A.J. Russell recorded the scene in what is perhaps American history. And in 1924, when John Ford recreated the scene for his film, he based the action on the photograph, complete with a still photographer to pose the crowd. The joining of America's East and West by rail is even more important today. The Salad Bowl Express is only one of 60 to 70 trains a day moving across the nation on this one line. Near the end of its second day, the Salad Bowl Express comes under the traffic control of dispatchers at North Platte, Nebraska. Here, 3 men per shift control every train on the 245 miles of track diagrammed on the walls. They decide which trains get priority on the line. The Salad Bowl Express is rushed along.
What kind of speed do you think you can make there now? If you get a 70-mile-an-hour train out behind 30-mile-an-hour trains, you have to start shuffling trains. If he gets by here, then I'll let that other eastbound go. But he's going around one train in the process of it right now.
Midnight. The Salad Bowl Express arrives at North Platte. Some cars will be sent south and eastward on other lines. Other cars will be added. The freight cars are pushed up a hump and separated. Gravity powers them down the slope. The tracks divide again and again. Automatic sensors weigh the cars, and retarders brake them. There are 221 miles of track in the yard, and as many as 5,000 freight cars at a time. By 4 a.m., a new train has been made up. A new crew comes aboard, and the train moves on. In the afternoon, the train crosses the Missouri River. Operated now by Chicago and Northwestern Railroad, it traverses the rich farmlands of Iowa. The next morning, the train is in Chicago. Marshalling yards like this one are dangerous places.
You have to watch for cars coming from both directions. There could be debris sticking out of a car. Try not to get caught in a situation where you have trains moving at high speed in both directions on each side of you. If you do have a tendency to feel dizzy, lay down on the ground. You could reel under the car.
Despite railroad emphasis on safety, there is an average of 15 deaths and 6,700 injuries to American rail yard workers each year. Danger for railroaders comes not only from the trains themselves. In the early days, desperados like Jesse James, Butch Cassidy, and the Sundance Kid held up trains in the lonely plains and mountains of the West. Today, trains are most often attacked as they pass through depressed areas in big cities.
We had one conductor, they got in with a gun and robbed him at Park Manor. There's just a few things that we go through out here. Everybody thinks we got such a small job. We have our ups and downs too. And this is our most dangerous spot of the trip. They put different articles in the tracks to derail us. They put old tires so they'll break the air hoses in two. They also have beer bottles, anything that gets their hands on. We've been shot at. They shot at me 5 times through the caboose windows. I got pictures of the hole. It was either a 38 or a 45 because it put big holes in the plexiglass. Sometimes they do it to rob the train. They break us in two to rob us so they can take things off of it. And on the cabooses they have this plastic fire. Yeah, I know all about it. He's going to throw. No, he's not either. Well, we go through this every day. It's nothing new to us.
The many dedicated men and women who are drawn to railroad work also live with the danger that goes with the job. The Salad Bowl Express rolls through the heartland of the industrial Middle West. On the 5th morning, the train parallels the Mohawk River. Now under Conrail control, it follows the same route taken in 1825 by the Erie Canal. Early on the 6th morning, the Salad Bowl Express arrives at its destination in the Bronx.
Oh, Mongo, Mongo, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna climb the Mongo tree. Mongo, Mongo.
10 carloads of produce are unloaded at Hunts Point Terminal each day. A carload of lettuce from Salinas has been bought by the Armata family, wholesalers who in turn sell to markets and restaurants.
Beautiful box of lettuce. And as my father would say, it talks to you. As soon as you open up the box.
It has been 7 days since the lettuce was picked. It took 4 railroads and the involvement of 1,000 men and women to move it across the country. 500,000 people work for the railroads in the United States. In one sense, theirs is just a job, but it is an essential job. Moving the grain, steel, coal, automobiles, perishables, even the lettuce for a PTA luncheon in Baldwin, Long Island. Traditionally, little boys were given model trains for Christmas, and captured by a dream, many grew up wanting to become an engineer. The reality today is not far different. For a new class of 23 engineers, the Long Island Railroad had 2,000 applicants to choose from.
All right, to get the train moving, I need the reverser and forward. This position. This is your throttle. Power 1 to 8 knots. All right, one whistle.
Dave Decker, senior instructor, has been an engineer for 14 years. Decker loves engineering and teaching, but the memory of train accidents in his past brings a special urgency to his teaching. Engineering used to be a man's job, but federal affirmative action guidelines give Vita Zamboli, a former secretary, an extraordinary opportunity to join an elite group of railroad employees.
Wait till we're over it. Wait till we're on that.
I can teach an engineer how to make the proper brake application and accelerate, decelerate. That's the easy part. My most difficult responsibility is to instill into an upcoming engineer that they have monumental responsibilities. There is no margin for error. Not when you're dealing with 1,600 people behind you. Hopefully, I can bring this across to these upcoming engineers.
You relax? Little damp. All right. That's good. That means you got guts. You're not nervous in here. There's something wrong. How do you feel? Are you coming in strong?
As she brings the train into a station, Vita must learn the right timing, how strongly to apply the brakes so as not to stop too soon or overrun the station.
Okay. Now what you want to do is you bail off the last second. No, not this. Go ahead, bail it off. All right. Super. So you want that feel of this thing charging into the station, making your initial application and then your final application. You ever run a train before? Huh? Never? You did a heck of a job. Well, what do you think? What do you feel? Feel that this is going to be your occupation or what?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure it's going to take a while, but I will get the feeling of bringing a train in.
But there's going to be times in your career when you're going to run across a grade crossing accident. But traveling along at 65, a car comes around the gate or through the gates. It's not a thing you can do. You hope you give pre-warning or a warning whistle and a warning bell before you get to that crossing, or ample. You'll search your soul to know whether you did it or not. It's not just the glory of running over the road and say, I always wanted to be an engineer. Now I have that, is that you have to take that responsibility.
If her engineering career follows the norm, Vita will face 500,000 road crossings in the next 25 years. If she is never involved in an accident, passengers who ride her trains will have no reason to learn her name. There are many great train rides around the world, but not one can match the aura of elegance, mystery, and romance surrounding the name Orient Express. It ran for almost a century until its demise in 1977. Now, two men have revived the historic run to Istanbul. Albert Glott bought the 1920s vintage cars and lovingly refurbished them.
Sometimes, you know, you have to do everything on the train.
T.C. Swartz chartered the cars for those who could afford to recapture the glory of rail travel in its heyday.
You give them, and then how to surpass it. People's idea of luxury is a little bit different than maybe what it actually was. So what we're trying to do now is to give them more luxury than they had in the past, in fact, to make it the ultimate trip.
I can't believe it. Oh, it's marvelous.
There will be 98 passengers on this trip, each paying a modest $5,000 one way.
I think the dogs are great.
Yeah, but I can't see them sitting in the dining car.
Some passengers, like actor Hal Linden and his wife, stage an arrival in the grand tradition, harking back to the aura of a princely trip. Original inlaid wood decorations and Lalique molded glass reliefs still decorate the car. Names of the countries the Orient Express passes through, Austria, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, ring with romance. Memories of mysteries like murder on the Orient Express surround the passengers with an atmosphere of champagne and dreams.
Well, my name is Otto, and I'm supposed to play the piano all the way to Istanbul.
Like everything that's wonderful about the world is going away, and the trains are one of those things.
Kim Vosper and Kyle Collins advanced the date of their wedding so they could make this their first trip together as a married couple. For bourgeois travelers, meals in an aristocratic French style. The ultimate temptation for those who count calories.
I remember as a child, we used to put people on the train in New Iberia, and I was never sad because they were leaving. I was always sad because I wasn't leaving too, that I wasn't standing on that back platform waving goodbye. I think I was 6 or 7 when I took my first train ride. From that time on, I think I fell in love with trains. And when I heard that you could spend 4.5 days on a train, that sold me on this trip.
The train cruises Europe like an ocean liner. Gypsies play, as they did on the first run of the Orient Express. In the evenings, there are gala 7-course dinners. And occasionally, the train waits as passengers are bussed to the entertainment. A champagne tasting at the 150-year-old cave of Mum's Winery in France. And just as on its maiden voyage, there is a festive reception in Budapest. On the first trip, no passengers in the Orient Express dined at the hunting lodge of the Sultan. It is an express journey to the sun. But the high point for many comes in Vienna, where the Vienna Boys Choir is only part of the entertainment. Protocol prevented the Austrian royal family from receiving plebeian passengers of the first Orient Express. Now, the Pallavicini Palace is theirs for the evening. Finally, the end of the line, Istanbul, Turkey, where passengers get the red carpet treatment, Oriental style. For the 98 passengers of the Orient Express, the trip will remain an extraordinary adventure into the romance of rails. But the Orient Express has no monopoly on beauty. There are grand adventures for everyone. A rediscovery of travel by train. Amtrak's Crescent, with newly rebuilt equipment, races like a speeding ship across Lake Pontchartrain in Louisiana. The Great Plains offer the same sweeping vistas that challenged the pioneers so long ago. There are majestic views of the Rockies on the Canadian transcontinental route. San Diegan is a beachcomber from Los Angeles to San Diego. In the future, new trains traveling 160 miles an hour are planned for the run between Los Angeles and San Diego. And that is only the beginning. Extraordinary experimental trains may someday revolutionize land travel. For those who love trains, whether as engineer, hobo, or passenger, there's an appreciation due for the songwriter's line, "It's got to be the going and not the getting there that's good."
Nopalika, Sherpaville, Jacksonville, Waterville, and Costa Rica, Pittsfield, Springfield, Bakersfield, Shreveport, Hackensack, Cadillac, Fond du Lac, and Davenport, Idaho, Jellicoe, Diamantina, Argentina, Catalina, Pasadena. See what I mean? I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I've crossed the deserts bare, man. Well, I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've done my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Boston, Charleston, Dayton, Louisiana, Washington, Houston, Kingston, and Texarkana, Monterey, Faraday, Santa Fe, and Tallapoosa, Glen Rock, Black Rock, Little Rock, Oskaloosa, Tennessee, Hennessy, Chicopee, and Spirit Lake, Grand Lake, Devil's Lake, Cradle Lake, Pete's Sakes. I've been everywhere, man. I've crossed the deserts bare, man. Well, I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've done my share, man. I've been everywhere. One more verse. I can get a long breath. I've been to Pittsburgh, Parkersburg, Ravensburg, Colorado, Ellensburg, Rexburg, Vicksburg, and El Dorado, Larimore, Atmore, Haverstraw, Chattanooga, Chester, Nebraska, Alaska, Opelika, Baraboo, Waterloo, Kalamazoo, and Kansas City, Sioux City, Dodge City, Cedar City. What a pity. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I've crossed the desert bare, man. Well, I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've done my share, man. I know someplace you haven't been, and he says, I've been everywhere.